I'm going to tackle one last problem from A3. Of course, there are many other problems for you to practice in the text itself. If there are any other problems that you'd like to see covered, don't hesitate to ask. Don't mind at all making a special video lecture for you, or for that matter, if there's just a particular concept that you're struggling with, shoot me an email. More than happy to create your own video lecture. So one last problem here. We're after a negated universal quantifier that involves the A. A is only in there once, so I guess that gives us an easy target. The main operator in P1 is the horseshoe, so these quantifiers, we can't apply instantiation there. The main op in P2 is the tilde, so again, existential instantiation can't be applied there. Instantiation can only be applied when the main op is the quantifier, and here we have a tilde as the main op. There we've got a horseshoe as the main op. So how to begin? And really, we're quite limited here. When the tilde is the main op, generally it's a good idea to go ahead and apply change of quantifier. And of course, that's the new rule in A3 that you're practicing, so that clearly stands to reason. 2 CQ, change of quantifier. And this way, at least, the tilde won't be the main operator. The quantifier will be the main operator. And so from there, we can go ahead and instantiate. So change the quantifier existential to universal. There's a tilde directly to the left, so let's take that away. There's not a tilde to the right, so let's put that in. And the rest of it will remain the same. Now the quantifier is the main operator, so now we can instantiate. 3 universal instantiation. Let's strip that quantifier. And we've got a choice here. We could do a variable, x, y, or z, or we could do a constant, a through w. Perhaps currently it's unclear which way to go here. So let's go with a variable. And if we need a constant, we can always come back and do ui again. So I'm going to strip the quantifier, and I'll leave it as a, it should be a parenthesis. I'll leave it as a variable, in this case x. Y or z would suffice as well. So that's the end result. It's supposed to be a tilde on the outside of a set of parentheses here. So now we've stripped the quantifier, we changed the quantifier, we stripped the quantifier, and it looks fancier, but we're back to chapter 7 stuff. I got a tilde on the outside of a set of parentheses with a wedge inside. This is a pretty straightforward case of De Morgan's, and so we're off to the races. Distribute that tilde to the variables on the inside. In this case, it started as a wedge. Switch it to a dot, and that's always a nice sign. Dots are easy to work with. You can simplify, and let's just go ahead and bust it up. If we don't need both of these, it's not taking much time here. Com and a simp, that should be routine. That gets us access to the second conjunct, and now we've completely busted up what originally back there was line 2. We haven't touched line 1 at all. So the fruit of our labor, 6 and 7 respectively, can we take either of these parts, both of these parts, and plug something in up there? Well, the C here is the consequent. We want the A, that's in the antecedent. How do you isolate the antecedent of a horseshoe statement? That's going to be modus tollens. Of course, there are going to be tildes involved. So let's take this negated C and build the negation of the consequent here. So let's just write that out to the side. If we want to set up a modus tollens to isolate the antecedent, which contains our A, and there's my reasoning here. A, the variable I need, is in the antecedent. That looks like a modus tollens, given that the operator, the main operator, is the horseshoe. That would require an MT, would require the negation of the consequent. So what would that look like? Let's just write it out here so we can work backwards. There's the consequent negated. The main operator would be the tilde. So let me continue to work backwards here. What if I did a change of quantifier on that? It would look like this. And that clarifies my next step. Pause, don't panic, keep calm. Start at the end and work backwards. A little reverse engineering here, and that'll clarify my plan here. Always go in with a plan. Don't just randomly start to execute steps when you get stuck. So if that's what I want, the next step, again, is pretty clear. I've already got that not C part. All I'm missing is the quantifier. And so in this case, I need to do 6 universal generalization. And remember back up here, I did UI and I left it as a variable. I could have gone a constant. I could have done that just as easily. Now for UG, it's restricted. It can only be done from a variable. So if I'd done a constant down here, now I wouldn't be able to do the UG. I'd have to go back and switch that to a variable. So it looks like, hindsight of course is always 20/20, but it looks like I made a pretty good choice there. So 6 UG can only be done from a variable, can't be done from a constant. I'm just going to add in that quantifier here. So now I'm just working backwards. I'm undoing what I did here in the margins. The negation of the consequent up there would be an existential one. So I need to change that quantifier, ACQ, universal to existential. There's not a tilde out to the left, so I'm adding one in. There is to the right, so I'll take that away. And conveniently, I've got the negation of the consequent. That sets up the modus tollens that I originally wanted, 1 and 9 MT. That gets me the negation of the antecedent there. And it's got to negate the entire antecedent. So now the main operator is a tilde. I can instantiate, so how can I solve that? It's turning out to be a long problem. I've got a 10 change of quantifier. Universal changes to existential, take that tilde away, add one in. And now the quantifier at least is the main operator. So what to do? Usually you want to strip it. Existential in this case, instantiation, EI. EI is restricted, it's got to be to a constant, so I'm going to strip that and change it to a constant, A through W. I'm going to stick with M, any constant, A through W. Again, some texts there use a John Doe variable. Ours does not do that. So there's the result of my EI. And at this point, I've got myself a De Morgan's 12 DM. Distribute the tilde. The operator here is a dot. That switches to a wedge. And I'm nearly home. Not quite, but nearly. I want to isolate this A. To isolate the A, given that this is a wedge statement, I would need the negation of this disjunct, which would be a not B. And of course, double negation makes that a not B. So do I have a not B anywhere? Got a not B here, and I already did a common assemp, but this is a constant, and that one's not. So what to do? Well, retrace my steps here. Where did I get that? I got that negated B out of, if I just back up a couple moves, I got it out of doing a universal instantiation on line 3. And UI is flexible. It could be to a variable, it could be to a constant. I chose a variable, and good thing for me because I did that UG here, but now I need it to be a constant. So I'm going to borrow that piece, and then I'm going to instantiate it, or I'm going to generalize it rather, and then I'm going to instantiate it. So here's what it would look like. I'm going to include a couple more steps here, and then I'm going to allow you to finish off the rest of this. Let's generalize it, and I'll just create a little loop here. Actually, I'm going to take it from line 7, where it's already simplified. 7 UG, I'm going to add in that quantifier, and this time I want it to be a constant, so I've added it back in, and now I'm immediately going to strip it. There's my little loop that I'm creating. 14 universal instantiation, and I can go to a constant, I can go to a variable. Up here I wanted a variable, now I want a constant, and I want it to work together with line 13, so I'm going to pick M, and now I've set up here a DS. Now I need to do a double negation, I need to do a com, but I've got a DS, and that'll get me this part, at which point I can do a generalization. I can't do immediately a universal generalization. Let me slide back up here. It's turning out to be a long proof. I can't do a universal generalization there. Let me toggle back and forth. I need a bigger screenshot, it looks like. I can't do a universal generalization because that's a constant, and UG can only be done from a variable. So I'm going to have to do existential generalization, and I'm going to have to change that quantifier, which is what I want anyway, because the tilde needs to be the main op and not the quantifier. So I know I didn't quite finish that one up, but I ran out of room. I did all the heavy lifting here. And if you followed me, even if this was horribly confusing initially, if you can watch this video maybe a couple times over and you can follow my reasoning, go ahead and see if you can finish that one up, pick up where I left off, finish the thing off. I've given you the plan, the strategy here. And after you finish it off yourself, take that problem that you've just completed and just completely water it up, throw it away, wipe the slate clean, and now get a clean sheet of paper, discard this, shut the video off, quit watching YouTube all day long, shut the thing off, and start again. Repetition here goes a long way. Many of these problems involve pattern recognition. The more you practice, the more you're going to internalize those rules, the more the next step is just going to leap off the page at you. So quit watching YouTube. I got nothing left. I could do a puppet show here or something of the sort. But shut this off and then try it again on your own.